fighting. QXC takes 2 bases and gets like 6 barracks against Zerg and just pummels Zerg to death. And waits a little while longer to expand. Really hard to deal with. Makes it very hard for counterattacks to happen because there's not that much space for any counterattacking to go on. And it works out great, especially in a situation like this, where your Zerg opponent has his main, his natural, and this base. They're all so far away from you that it's hard to attack. So his big key is to do some sort of gigantic counterattack, which really was the thing that crushed White-rA this game. I mean, again, this is a very scary army. High on the Stalkers. A lot higher on the sentries this time. Still same amount of zealots, not too big. And honestly, if you have enough gas to get many sentries with your Colossi, you'll probably have the coolest day ever because you can make like giant walls of force fields. And then they have to retreat, and then you can throw more walls of force fields. And now your Colossi can bust right through the force fields so your army doesn't even get trapped as you're being aggressive. And of course, easiest thing in the world for Sen. He had a big army that he did a drop with, and then a big army that did a counterattack with. Bought him all this time to get it, the biggest army to just crush. Wow, for some reason my lips did not want to say that word. He can just easily crush this force by White-rA. And White-rA is, of course, trying to add on more Colossi, trying to rebuild. But now, oh god, look at how spread out this is. Like, we have more Colossi trying to get in here. A little bit of disorganization. I was actually wondering why this Colossus was hanging out by the wolf statue. Well, it looks like pretty happy times here, but meanwhile, this entire huge army is coming in here to put some little hurt on White-rA. And again, this composition is really tough to deal with. Notice how far back the Colossus gets to be. And notice how this army is getting shredded pretty fast. I mean, Sen did end up winning this battle, but I mean, I want you to take note of how muscular White-rA's composition is. Look at how big this army is for Sen. And Sen pops right in here, and the Colossus immediately starts doing damage. Already Roaches roasting the Infestor. See you later. Infestor pops. More Hydralisks just burning up. And this was honestly a very small force for White-rA. And there were Corruptors in there. Jesus. This really goes to show that if you can get this force stable, this style that White-rA is doing, and make sure it has traction, that, you know, it like holds for the later stages of the game, then you're going to be in just fantastic shape. So tight, nice, closed building placement. Now, we're just going to speed through the rest of this because, you know, this is the cleanup period. This is the period that's dramatic in a tournament, but of course not useful when we're trying to learn. Yep, there's a good game. And see another drop in the main, abusing the immobility. And look at all these Colossi. God, these Colossi just do so much damage. I mean, it's honestly kind of impressive how much damage White-rA could actually do with those Colossi, thanks to that +2 upgrade and eventually the +3 upgrade. I mean, if you get +3, there's like nothing the Zerglings can do about it. Let's see, if you have the +3 upgrade, then that would mean the Colossi are doing, what is that? They do 21 damage a shot, so that's 42 damage. And a Zergling has 2 armor, yeah, so... Or 3 armor. Yeah, so it drops to 39. So you're still one-shotting them. I mean, there's no chance, period, that your Colossi can really lose to anything like that. Sorry, I'm just doing a little tangent math in my head. But, I mean, that really goes to show you how that army is muscular, but immobile. So you need to have very tight placement. And then, of course, you can happily just sort of get in his face and crush him. So let's go ahead and take some questions in the chat. Of course, people commenting on my crooked glasses. Of course, if any did not know, not only are they broken, but these are Costco glasses, and they didn't adjust it for my mongoloid-shaped head. So they are forever crooked, but at least they're not as crooked as they used to be. Like before, they used to be like this, and my eyes actually adjusted to them like that. So when I actually straightened them out, I felt dizzy all the time. So let us take some questions. Let us divine. Doom da dum bum bum. So let's see here. Subversion says, Day 9, Sen didn't really stand a chance versus that Colossi Stalker composition. What do you think would be the best unit composition / strategy for Zerg to counter that? So I think the best thing to think about is how Zerg versus Terran works in Brood War, in the original Brood War. Because again, I love Brood War references because people sort of accept that that game is divine. And it totally is. In that matchup, Zerg has Zerglings and Mutalisks at the start, well, those really do get crushed pretty hard by Medic Marine. So that's why you harass with the Mutalisks and poke around obnoxiously. You abuse the fact that these Medic Marine need to move cross-map to do damage, need to be stimming a lot to move quickly and to be mobile. And then as the game progresses, you do pretty much a lot of counterattacking and a lot of defending. And the StarCraft 2 variant of this would be like, for instance, this style of Zerg vs. Protoss. You're up against this Colossus Stalker army. So you do a lot of Mutalisk harassment, you do a lot of Nidus Swarms all over the place, you do counterattacks, big expanding. And as we saw in this game, the fact that Sen was able to do those drops and counterattack and kill 2 Nexuses meant that he had just enough units to hold off that big counter push that White-rA tried to do. Notice how I said that. He had just enough units. Honestly, if you try to get a right composition as Zerg, it can be pretty dangerous to deal with. I mean, even Idra, who really likes playing the macro style, expanding a lot, getting upgrades, having good fundamentals, relies heavily on a lot of drops and counterattacks in Zerg vs. Protoss to ensure that he doesn't lose to a giant death ball. And that really is the interesting tension in that matchup. Can the Protoss defend all this harassment and obnoxiousness long enough to set up this big army O'Doom and push out? Similar to how in Zerg vs. Terran, the Zerg's trying to whittle Terran down so that way when the Medic Marine Tank Vessel army comes out, it's not so big and it's manageable. So, Uber Bandit 22 says, Hey Day 9, had White-rA picked better bases. What could Zerg have done to win this second game? I think that he still could have done the drops. I think that dropping in those positions in Metalopolis is undeniably good. It is indubitably effective. So, do it. It's not going to be as effective. Like, you would have the opportunity to kill off the main, but then not have the opportunity to go kill off the gold instantly. Also, I think White-rA should have made a hell of a lot more cannons, which of course means that though his army will be smaller, he's much less likely to die, so yeah. And honestly, I think it would have been pretty tough for Zerg to deal with in that particular circumstance. So, let's see here. Oh, you know what? I actually love this question. The Night Row asked 2 questions, both of which kick ass. Wouldn't a mothership help an immobile army move around from one spot to another and be able to be in 2 places at once? So, I honestly, I love it because, first of all, it's a question about the mothership. Why would I not answer that? Motherships, right? The thing about motherships is I don't really think that how do I say that? It's less that the mothership it makes an immobile army mobile. And it's more that a mothership is the perfect sort of last phase. It's like the perfect nail in the coffin to complete your immobile army. It's like the best bolster. It's the icing on the cake. It's the banana on the sundae. It's really good. Getting a mothership for exactly that style of army is perfect. Because what happens, you move up with the Army of Doom, you're cloaked, you have all these anti-air units, you can easily snipe Overseers, unless your aim's really bad. You can do all sorts of fancy stuff with vortexing half his army and then putting force fields around it, even though you can't cluster them in one shot a 200 army, kind of the way you could before. You still can put probably a much bigger ring of force fields around and do some damage to it. And this isn't just me theorizing. The Chinese player Ace, I witnessed do beautiful things with a lot of Colossi and a lot of motherships. It was awesome to see. The one adjustment I would say is that if you are planning on doing something mothership-oriented, early expand and go Phoenix first and be really annoying with Phoenixes. Then get the robotics facilities so you can get a lot of Colossi. Because by doing so, you've already completed like half the tech tree needed for motherships. You already have the Stargate tech out, and you've made use of them. So that I actually like a little bit. And there's actually tons of questions about Immortals. You heard me just say Night Rust question about Immortal, and eSolar said, I joked about who builds Immortals. That was actually me being facetious. Immortals are really, really good. And a reasonable question, allow me to not be sarcastic at all. A very reasonable question is If my opponent is making tons of roaches, and I'm going for Colossi and Immortals, or excuse me, Colossi and Stalkers, why not start building Immortals instead of the Colossi? And here's the answer. Roaches have a range of 3. So when you see roaches and you're going Colossi, what you really want to do is just add 3 or 4 more sentries and force field, and then literally the roaches cannot touch your Colossi. And of course, when you get Colossi in big numbers, you really put the hurt on roaches hard. So that, I think, is the big sort of eye-opener for me when I was trying to practice my Protoss vs. Zerg, is that I didn't really need a ton of Immortals against the roaches. Stalkers do a lot of damage against them, and then Force Field's Colossus is just beautiful.